Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America on Friday, November 28th, 2014. And this is Live Talk. I'm Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Gibbs Dube.
And tonight on Live Talk, we are going to talk about the proposed 2015 national budget.
To join the discussion, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077, and we'll call you back.
And as usual, Live Talk goes out to Zimbabwe on our 909 medium wave frequency and on the 4930, 5940 and 15455 kilohertz shortwave, Monday through Friday at 8:30 p.m.
And on the internet, you can find us at www.voazimbabwe.com, www.voashona.com, and www.voindebele.com.
The economy continues to be dragged down by liquidity shortages, antiquated plant and machinery, cheap imports, and high cost of production. This situation has led to company closures. In 2013, there were 2,130 companies which closed, affecting 19,191 employees. In 2012, 1,468 companies closed, affecting 20,825 employees. In 2013, last year, 878 companies closed, affecting 14,499 employees. In 2014, 134 companies have closed, affecting 928 employees, giving a cumulative total of companies closed since 2011 up to 2014 of 4,610. And employees affected 55,443. Mr. Speaker said, with respect to export incentives, we need, Mr. Speaker said, to export, we need to produce and export. That we are not doing. And I'm proposing a raft of export incentives to encourage exportation of goods. The growth and development of the economy is underpinned by improving production and export of goods and services.
Once again, thanks for joining us. And you are listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the 4.1 billion budget proposal by Finance Minister Patrick Chinamasa.
The budget was presented in Parliament yesterday by the minister, who announced that it would be on roughly about $4.1 billion, as Blessing is stressing. The country's GDP remains unmoved at 3.2% in 2015, with modest growth in crucial sectors such as mining and agriculture. Government expects to collect $4.1 billion in revenue against expenditure of $4.115 billion.
As is expected, of course, the opposition is saying that the budget does not do enough to address the country's economic challenges. But of course, members of the ruling ZANU-PF party are saying Mr. Chinamasa was walking a tightrope, and he did manage to address some of the concerns that have led to the economic problems that the country is actually facing at the moment. Gibbs.
What do you think about these issues? If you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077. That number again, 001-202-465-0318. That one is for WhatsApp. So the WhatsApp number, 001-202-465-0318. But if you wish to call us right now, use this number, 001-202-619-2077. Ye kungakunjalo ke mfowethu.
Onguka hama wadiwa nasi, tunaoti tinge tichitarisa nezve gwara kana rekufambiswa kweupfumi gore rinouya, kana kuti yatinoti iyo national budget. Gurukota rinoona nezveupfumi vapatrick Chinamasa nezuro vakaparura urongwa hwavo hwegwara irori rekuti upfumi hwenyika huchange huchifamba sei, asi vakatenda kuti zvinhu munyaya dzezveupfumi hazvina kunge zvakamira zvakanaka. Makambani akawanda ari kuvharwa, vanhu vari kurasikirwa nemabasa, asi chimwe chakaitwa navaChinamasa vakadzikisa mutengo wedoro. Zvandaona ndichiverenga vamwe vanga vachiti ivo haiwa vanhu vanenge vachidhakwa havasi upfumi husina kunge hwakamira zvakanaka Gibbs. Uyezve pane mimwe mitero yakaiswa kuedza kuti zvinhu zviri kubva kunyika dzakaita sana South Africa neChina zvisange zvichipinda munyika, zvikuru sei zvinhu zvakaita seflower nezvimwe zvakadaro zvanga zvichitengwa kubva kunze. Asi sematauriro vaChinamasa vari kushushikana ivo kuti mari yakawanda yehurumende iri kuenda kunobhadhara vashandi, zviri kunzi nevamwe izvozvo zvinokonzera kuti zvinhu zvisafambe zvakanaka, nekuti mari dzakawanda dzinofanira kuenda mukugadzirisa zvivakwa, kana kuti yatingati infrastructure yakaita semigwagwa, zvinhu zvakaita semagetsi, zvinhu zvakaita sekugadzirisa zvinhu muzvipatara, zvinova zvinhu zvisina kunge zvichigadziriswa nenyaya yekuti mitero iri kuwanikwa nehurumende yaita mishoma. Keke racho riri kuramba richiita diki, asi zviri kudiwa zvinenge zvakati wandisei Gibbs.
Yes, ulingandaba lingalitshona njani ndingahamba lo blessing. Yes, siyaphila kwamagama. Esikhuluma ngakho lamhlanje sikhangela khona ukuthi iZimbabwe yasebenzisa njani imali ngomnyaka ozayo. So singakutsho ke ukuthi ke umnumzana Patrick Chinamasa uhambe edale leParliament izolo. Wafika khona ngale ke wakhuluma ukuthi okumele kwenzakale eZimbabwe ukuthi kube le mali e4.1 billion ezasetshenziswa ngomnyaka ka2015 ukwenza ukuthi kulungiswe ke inhlelo ezishiyeneyo. Kodwa ke ukhulume wathi ke imali eningi engafika singathi 82% iya eholweni lesisebenzi. Uphinde wethula njalo ukuthi ucabangela ukuthi eleZimbabwe umnotho walo uza kuthuthuka nge3.2%. Waphinda njalo wagcizelela blessing esithi ucabanga ukuthi enxe kumele kukhuphulwe lokho kuthiwa i-tax free threshold yemali yabantu abayithola ngenyanga. Isuka ke ku$250 iyefika ku$300 ngenyanga. Uphinde wakhuluma njalo umnumzana izolo kade ekuform civil. Sizwele ukuthi uthe khona amankampani angafika 4,610 avalwa eZimbabwe. Kuthi ke izisebenzi ezingafika 54,443 zalahlekelwa umsebenzi kusukela ngo2011 kuze kuyefika kathesi ngo2014. Ngathi nje ngamafitshane kungani khonokho ke akukhulumileyo, kodwa okunye nje singakaqedi khonapho uthe-ke eleZimbabwe lesikwelede esimangalisayo 8 billion yothe ikhona kathesi nxa esikhuluma. So singathi sesilobani kathesi.
Of course, for those of you who are just joining us tonight on Studio 7 Live Talk, we are talking about the proposed 2015 national budget. We just want to do a quick recap for the benefit of those who did not have time or could not have read what the minister said, or at least this was broadcast live. Some people obviously might not have been available for one reason or the other. But these are the major highlights, and this is from an internet-based website called The Source. And the highlights that they are listing are as follows: economy to grow 3.2%. Inflation to remain below 1% in 2014 and subdued in 2015. Government to collect 4.1 billion revenue against expenditure of 4.115 billion. And government to collect 3.93 billion by 2014 year end, and 2015 recurrent expenditure seen at 92%. Employment costs to chew 82% of the budget, that is $3.2 billion of the 2014 budget. Mining sector to grow by 3.1%, ICT by 6.4%, and transport by 2.9%. Exports expected to reach 3.83 billion. That is in 2015. Imports seen at 6.15 billion. Tax-free threshold, like Gibbs has highlighted, increased to $300 per month from $250. Tax amnesty extended to 15 months from 6 months. And then excise duty on cigarettes increased to $20 per 1,000 sticks from $15 per 1,000 sticks. And then excise duty on clear beer reduced to 40% from 45% Gibbs beer.
That's massive, eh?
Indeed. A government to impose tax on imported doors, buns and bread. Corporate tax on exporting companies to be lowered by between 15 and 30%. Royalties on firms selling to local diamond and cutters polished to be scrapped. Agriculture to grow by 3.4%. Government to mobilize 252 million for presidential inputs program. And then lastly, tourism sector to grow by 4.7%. Those are some of the highlights, Gibbs.
At the same time, I think Mr. Chinamasa called for transparency and accountability in the mining sector and said actually that a joint monitoring task force will be put in place very soon to take care of some of those challenges. He also noted that there will be some kind of reduction of taxes with respect to those people that are licensed to cut and polish diamonds, because he says there are a lot of diamonds that are being exported and Zimbabwe is not getting a lot of it, a lot of money out of it in terms of value addition. So then he went further to say that, as you put it right, Blessing, he will increase taxes on imported cigarettes, and at the same time, he proposed the taxation of imported goods like plain bread, buns, dough and cakes. And all these are being sourced from Cape Town, South Africa. He says it's weird to have people importing something like dough, You still remember that, really in Zimbabwe, we had a lot of bakeries, like Downwings, Swiss, Anglo-Swiss and others. So they used to actually produce their own kind of dough and stuff like that. But now, look at it. We're getting such imports. I mean, there's something wrong here.
And of course, interestingly, the minister also sought to address one of the concerns being raised by investors that the one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to indigenization is the one that is actually scaring investors. So the minister said this is going to be done sector by sector. So essentially, the government has stripped the Minister of Indigenization and Youth from ensuring that he implements the controversial indigenization law. So it is going to be done sector by sector. This might be a positive move, Gibbs.
I think so, certainly, because you need something to actually stimulate the economy. And I still remember you had an interview with Mr. Tenaibidi sometime this year. And we were saying that Zimbabwe needs about $4 billion at the moment to actually restart, doing business. But at the end of the day, money is not there. And we see that there's no much in terms of foreign direct investment. And then I think the minister also mentioned something that is critical. And this is, in terms of the shareholding in companies, saying that, there is a time when people have to reconsider certain things. And especially like having, foreign-owned companies discussing some of these issues with line ministries. I think that's a positive move there. Maybe it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. We're not quite sure of it. And at the same time, ukhulume okunye njalo Blessing ani abantu bangakukhangela bathi kodwa enxa yasikhulumela ukuthi kule mgwaqo lapho okwakhiwa khona ukuthi kumele kube lokho kuthiwa i-dualization ukuthi kuzadingwa sibili ukuthi abantu bangafika beze investa khonapho. Siyakwazi nxa usuka-ke ePlumtree usiya eMtare kuyalungiswa kopana umgwaqo, kodwa ungabona umgwaqo ovele eHarare usiya eGweru usiya eBulawayo via eGweru, i-dualization yakhona ikhanya iyahlupha. So ukuthi kungadingwa ama-stakeholders kulungiswe khona kuyana enxa bangaba khona abantu abaningi abangangena kulungiswe-ke imigwaqo ngemfanelo. What esikwaziyo ukuthi imigwaqo phela uyakwazi ukuthi iqakathekile. Nxa ungela migwaqo emihle ama-road networks lawa awungeke wasebenzela izweni. Kuyafana ukuthi udrive uthole kulama pothole lapho ungaqasha khona intundla yazi ijiraffe ukuthi ayingeke yadlula kulama pothole angako. So kukhanya zani kungahlupha khonokho. So ngikho esithi hayi asuzela abantu bazesebenza lathi khonapho. Kodwa ukuthi bayabuya ngokunye lokho.
Onguka vadiwa kune ava vachangotibata nhasi kuti tinge tichitarisa nezvenyaya yebhajeti uye tinoda kuziva kuti imi munharaunda dzamugere zvinhu zviri kufamba sei takatarisa nyaya dzezveupfumi, nekuti chiri kunetsa inyaya yekuti mabasa anenge achiri mashoma. Vana vakawanda vari kupedza chikoro asi Gibbs mabasa acho anenge ari kuti netsei. Vachina masa vakati ivowo chiri kunetsa pabhajeti yavo ndechekuti mari zhinji ichaenda kuvashandi vehurumende. Pachisara paine mari shoma shoma yekuti vagadzirise zvinhu zvakaita semigwagwa, zvinhu zvakaita semagetsi. Zvinova zvinhu zvekuti zvikatanga kugadziriswa zvinoita kuti upfumi hwenyika hunge huchifamba zvakanaka. Nekudaro hama wadiwa, toda kunzwa kuti munoti kudii imi nebhajeti yakaturwa iyo navachinamasa. Vari kuti upfumi huchati kwirei zvishoma ne3.2%. Iro gore riri kuteera iro riri Gibbs.
I think we are getting some messages while we're looking for our guests that we have actually invited. I'm told we've got a slight problem with the lines, but I think they're actually tackling this. So we've got some messages on Facebook, and one of the messages is from Chester Tubeli, who writes, "This government is not doing anything good for the nation. We hope that they can do a lot for us." Then we've got Gift Situme Moyo, who says, "If there are no any other means to deal with the closure of companies, it means that the Minister of Finance and other ministers are hitting a snake on the tail."
Instead of the head.
Instead of the head. We know that if you want to kill a snake, you have to strike the head. So at the end of the day, I think we may be having one of our guests. Who is there? Mbarokon.
Is it Mr. Japhet Moyo?
Oh, okay, I'm told
That's
that.
Mr. Godwin Piri.
Yes.
Mr. Piri, good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys?
We are doing fine. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Piri is with which organization, Gibbs?
He is with the Incha Youth and is one of the social commentators based in Bulawayo. Mr. Piri, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for calling me.
Thank you so much.
Now, Mr. Piri, what is your take on this budget presented by Minister Chinamasa? Obviously, 60% of the country's population or Zimbabwe's population consists of the youths. It's a very important demography. So, as a youth, are you pleased with what the minister is proposing in his budget?
Well, I would say that the budget does not really address it. To be honest, it's almost a non-event. In the sense that it does not respond to the key challenges that Zimbabwe is facing. It does not offer any solutions moving forward in terms of how we're feeling around the economy, in terms of how we're growing the economy, in terms of how government will be able to create jobs for young people, create economic opportunities for young people. So, to that extent, I think the budget really doesn't respond to any of those issues. And as far as we're concerned, it's really non-event.
Mr. Piri is calling it a non-event. But Mr. Piri, maybe if you can move to another place because we can hardly hear you. The network is not that good.
Okay, let me move a bit. Is it better now?
Gibbs?
Ngwana sibili uchete kuhle sibili nxa usukhangeleke ungathi abasakhulayo abaningi bathini ngakhona okwethulwe nguChinamasa.
Abasoro bekhangela ukuthi uhulumende uzabuya namacebo ukubancedisa ukuthi bathole imisebenzi abasha bathole ama-chance ukuthi kungenza amaphilisi abo ezinjalo bakuthole kubudget leyo. Kodwa ngingakhangela ibudget leyo ayinakho esingathi kuzancedisa abantu abatsha ukuthi bathole imisebenzi phakathi ama-business ezinto ezinjalo. Seko futhi ibudget leyo ngokubona kwethu akula mahluko omusa ezawuletha sizaqhubeka njalo siphila ngendlela esiphila ngayo.
Kodwa nxa sukhangeleke okunye-ke anti ukhulumile njalo lokuthi kule mali abantu abayiholayo ngenyanga abantu nxa ukuthi ungazuza $250 okwamanje awuthathelwa umthelo we-tax kodwa ukuthi hayi ngcono lokhu kukhuphulwe kuyefika ku-$300 ngenyanga kambe ungathini ngakho?
Vele abantu abako-$800 abalutshwane vele mhlawumbe ngama-civil service kodwa-ke lakho futhi yona leyo registered imali encane kakhulu ungakhangela nendleko zabantu ama-expenses zabantu i-breakfast eZimbabwe ikhangele ukuthi $500. So then nawufika ku-$300 i-tax free akunamahluko omkhulu anelise ukuphilisa abantu bezimbabwe impilo elohlobo yakathesi abantu bahawu nalesi sidona sengezelele ayisoze ilethe mahluko omkhulu ngenxa yokuthi izivele imali yakhona eholwayo encane kakhulu.
So what Mr. Piri is saying here, Blessing, is that, about this tax-free threshold. He says there are a few people that are earning $300 a month. And $300 is nothing, compared to the poverty datum line or bread line, which is currently pegged at about 540, 580, somewhere there. So he says what is needed is for the economy to grow. If the economy doesn't grow, which means people can't benefit out of it, Yeah.
Of course, former finance minister Tendai Biti had this rather to say about the budget. He says the statement which was presented Thursday afternoon by Minister Chinamasa is, and I quote, just a formality that Chinamasa had to do, although there is nothing to expect from it. The growth target of 3.2% is a dream. The country needs a serious relook in terms of policy and governance. There is need to revisit the indigenization policy to ensure that we attract foreign direct investment. And he added that this is a feja economy that these guys are running. I don't blame them. I don't blame him much because he has nothing to do but to do what he did today. But the truth of the matter is there is nothing to talk about next year. He has confirmed it himself that things are tight and money is not coming into the country. And then there were also remarks made by another former cabinet minister, that is the former energy minister, Elias Mudzuri, who says that, and I quote, some corrupt people, this could be abused by, he was talking about a former cabinet minister in the inclusive government, says this could be abused by some corrupt people, and in the process chase away potential investors. Real investors want the law dealt with, that is the indigenization law that Mr. Mzuri is talking about here, and he says, and I quote, real investors want the law dealt with away. It's just a helpless rather, and something ought to be done correctly by this government. This is a wasted time for me because there was nothing new there, and the minister just made an empty statement that will send this country into disarray and economic collapse. And Mr. Mzuri adds that if you look at the figures of unemployment and company closures, it is something that Chinamasa should have addressed. But instead, he did not. He did the opposite, chasing away money through his reaffirmation of the indigenization law. So essentially, what the two gentlemen are saying is, the changes that Chinamasa proposed, for example, that line ministries should deal with the indigenization policy. They are saying these are just cosmetic changes, applying lipstick to a frog. Or applying perfume to a corpse. They are saying they do not address the challenges that the country is facing, that the opposition is saying that they would have wanted the government to do away with the indigenization laws.
Mr. Piri, I obviously think that you are supporting these two gentlemen. And if that's the case, what should be done?
Well, I think we need to appreciate that Zimbabwe is coming from a very difficult immediate path. And what you should be doing right now is attracting investors into this economy. That is the only way that you can actually grow it. And when you got restrictive laws, like the Indigenization Act, what an effective is doing is taking away the very investor that we need so much. It simply says that your investment is not safe in Zimbabwe, that Zimbabwe is a very risky country to invest in. So what we should be doing cosmetic changes to the Indigenization Act. We should accept that perhaps at some point it makes sense to some people, but definitely it doesn't make sense anymore. That it should be done away with totally.
And Mr. Piri, talking about the wage bill, this has been a source for friction between the government and the International Monetary Fund, for example, which is saying that the government must actually reduce the wage bill. But instead, we are seeing that the bill is actually rising.
Yes, but you see, the problem with speaker at the time is that they can actually distort the future. It's 80% of the total budget, right? Fine. But what is that 80% in real terms? The problem is not that the figure is too high. The problem is that the budget itself is too small. The press is too small. So as a result, the rest appears too high because it is being compared, it is being juxtaposed with a budget that is very small. So what government should be doing is grow the economy, so that you grow revenue, so that you grow the budget. Then those ratios begin to adapt themselves. The challenge is when you're trying to pay different wages against a very small budget, you then distort everything. It appears that the percentage is very high. And yet in reality, people are getting very small salary. And if you reduce that, also now having the figure for this of 100, they are running the risk of having malfunctioning again because people are not being decently paid.
Thank you, Mr. Piri. Of course, there is also another disagreement between Harare and the International Monetary Fund. Harare says its debt is 7.2 billion, and the IMF says it's more than 12 billion. Why this discrepancy? Harare does not include offshore borrowing, which the IMF actually includes. And, the debt can be high, compared to what is being advertised.
So kuyamangalisa ukuthi kuhamba njani ke blessing nxa usukhangele wena kuyahlupha abanye babetshaya imtshini yabo labanye betshaya yabo kodwa ke okuhlupha kakhulu ukuthi phela umuntu uyacabanga akufunayo but kulamabhuku phela kumele bavule bethi isikwelede nansi nxa izimbabwe sithi ile 8 or 7 billion isikwelede laba besithi kule 12 billion which means kule nto engahambi kuhle khona.
Indeed. We have a caller, Nusa Dube, kubulawayo makadi. Dube makadi. Ngiyaphila.
Injani impilo ublessing bezama ukuhlokoza kancane ngesishona ukuthi ukhulume. Anti wena ukhuluma vele indimi zonke. Asithayi ngesintu isindebele so ke ubona njani khonokho okwethulwe nguhulumende izolo?
into yabhekana la kudala ungakhala ubona ukuthi nesikhulu ukuthi i-setup yama-industry yanjani njengokumzelo so industry i-setup bangona yanjani ubona ukuthi ukuthengisela wangahluphi i-local benefit market yangahluphi njani ngoba phela utegogo kwawule ikodona nje ikodona isiyathengisa ama-textiles lapho-David White khatha abantu abafika ama-5,000 bethi manje imkhothana bewazi vele bazayithengisa kukhadona textiles usukhangela ukhangela emathebeleni na bekule beef export exhibition yakizwa
ngaphi ngaphi kwankona
export exhibition appetite exhibition export beef straight to Europe ngenxa yokuthi wayekufaka amaphela okufaka wansi emathebeleni kuyinkomo vele ngani inkomo ikheroba wakhala vele izile manika yithimba awazali makhatha konke kwankona yadinga bona bama-industry
bamba khonapho ke Dube bamba Dube ungayindawo bamba Dubes ungayindawo siyabuya kuwe bamba khonapho ungayindawo bamba khonapho.
And Mr. Piri, please also do stay on the line. And for our radio listeners, we are streaming live. Go to www.voazimbabwe.com and press on Live Talk. This is Blessing Zulu.
And Kips Dube saying, stay tuned to Zimbabwe.
for those of you who are just joining us, good evening, and this is Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the $4.1 billion proposed national budget by Finance Minister Patrick Chinamasa Gibbs.
If you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number 001-202-619-2077 and we'll call you back. That number again 001-202-619-2077. The other number for WhatsApp is 001-202-465-0318. Ecingweni lapha silomnumzana uDube ikade sakhuluma blessing. Baba Dube lokhu khona ecingweni?
Ngikhona.
Kade usakhuluma qhubeka baba usathini khona?
Ya endo konga ukuthi industry is very connected ukuthi umuntu ngayo noma ilima something ngakhala ndawo le ekadonga lapha ama-silos angikhona angasida the whole country kuma-farmers ayilimu khapha so kwakungadingakala ukuthi ngidibeke ukuthi ngizawuthengisa ngaphi akuthini kodwa wakwazi nga ndingumba ngizawuthengisa endaweni enye industry ay-connected kabethi omunye lenze okunye omunye lenze okunye omunye lenze awulanto engahambi angeke uzokuhamba
manje mnumzana Dube uthi kwenziweni akutsheleke uhulumende ukuthi bangenza lokhu bayenze lokhu ngalunga akusitshele sizwe ba
ulenze kwakhuluma ngathi ifala ukuchayina kwenshileni kumele ukuthi ungazaba lenhloni ukuthi into yayenza kudala kumbe ingikayisebenza balina ngoba isebenza kodwa kumele imodify benze ibe right ukuthi uyishiye ukaze ungasoze ukwanise onye ozagcina uziqoda isenzana abantu awuncedi ngathi khona
so bangazama ukuthi benzeni khonapho bangenza ntuphi
abadala bakhona akudingakala ukuthi kumele into abatshela ukuthi benzayo ngathi abadala phela laba bantu laba kumele bona xa ubona abantu labo bevuka bengalakudla ekuseni ubushiti yona awusithi umuntu ongani kumele benasifundekile manje kunye sawafunda kade sifana
hayi siyakuzwa-ke mnumzana Dube ungadinela kusasa uphenduke phela ungaphi khonapho hayi kulungile-ke uzowangena-ke lamhla siyajabula ukuthi uzowakhuluma kustudio 7. Okay, sibongile kakhulu baba. So what Mr. Dube is saying, Blessing, is that Zimbabwe used to have a very vibrant industry, and he actually talked about cotton plantations that were there in Kokwe and the Katoma textile mills, all those kind of things. He said you'd grow at that time your kind of cotton, and then you pick it up and send it to some textiles. But now the situation, according to him, is totally different. There's nothing that is going on. And then he put another example of the West Nicholson beef factory that used to operate in Mataren South. So he says there was a lot of activity there in terms of beef exports to the EU. But now nothing is happening. So he says, okay, he knows everything is almost wrong in Zimbabwe. And he can't advise the government on what to do right now. Because he says, if you are the head of the family and you see that your kids are struggling, at times you have to make good decisions.
Yeah.
So for somebody to advise you from outside, sometimes it becomes a problem.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Mr. Piri, are you still on the line? Mr. Piri?
We seem to have a deadline there.
Problem
Yes.
there, Gibbs. But of course, we can talk about the issue of unemployment. Mr. Chinamasa, of course, said that in about 4 years, about more than 55,000 people lost their jobs, which represent about 6% of the formal workforce. So it means Zimbabwe has now become in informal market. Most people are actually working in the informal sector. Formal employment, I think, is largely the civil service at the moment. That is where most people who are formally employed are. But everyone else is the informal sector. And the problem has been that you know, there are no guidelines in this sector. It's untamed, and as a result, the government has been trying to collect revenue from the informal sector, but it has been struggling to do so. We are talking about people who do not even have bank accounts, so they cannot raid anything like what Zimbra has been doing with some companies that have not been paying taxes. They were simply garnishing the money from the account. But when it comes to the informal sector, it's a different ball game altogether, Gibbs.
Now, as you're mentioning something there in terms of the informal sector, you know that according to independent economists, and even the government has actually acknowledged this, billions of dollars are circulating outside the formal financial sector. So at the end of the day, if you've got billions of dollars circulating there, it's difficult to tax that kind of money. So how do you do it? Where do you start from? That's a very, very difficult thing to do. And at the same time, you talked about unemployment. According to the government, and that is Zimstats, only 10.7% we've got. I mean, in Zimbabwe, the unemployment rate is 10.7%. But when you talk to independent economists, it's more than 80%.
Indeed.
So which means that disparity on its own is causing a lot of problems. So if Zimbabwe doesn't want to acknowledge that there's that kind of gap, in terms of thinking between the government and some independent economists, then there's a crisis. So they have to bridge that gap and acknowledge that there's a problem. So maybe like what we try to do to invite them for this to this show, but they don't usually come. So that's a problem.
Yeah. I think we now have Mr. Piri. Mr. Piri, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Yes. I think some people are also saying that, the Americans are fond of saying, is the economy stupid? But some people are saying when it comes to resolving the economic crisis in Zimbabwe, there is no political will. Do you agree? But, of course, Minister Shinamasa was blaming it on sanctions. Which is which?
One of the things that needs to be addressed, the key issue that needs to be addressed right now is the issue of individualism. And the problem is that perhaps there isn't enough political will to push it. This is a matter that is discussed point by year in the state-controlled media that now there's agreement, there's consensus that the different states cannot compete with this. We need further reforms before it is a hindrance to investment. But we have not seen them, that realization being turned into actual action. We have not seen any real and tangible change in that act, and that makes it more relevant, friendly, and so on. So I think it's people that address that the political rule up, I think are very right. It only takes government to act in a certain way. And if that action is not taking place, I think it's fair to conclude that there's no willingness to act in that policy manner.
Thank you, Mr. Piri. Gibbs?
Yeah, nxa sisikhangeleke Phiri uyakhuluma khona possibly kodwa ke nxa sesithi singahluzisisa kuhle kungazana ukuthi kutholakale esingathi solution enkingeni le iZimbabwe party kiyo kungani kungahlupha nxa sisikhuluma futhi la nge-indigenization uzwela lapho ublessing la ukhulumile ukuthi kulaloko kuthiwa i-political will. So i-political will yankhona leyo nxa sukhangeleke iziphathamandla zikahulumende kambe zingatshintsha yini zibe zisithi lamhlanje sesingakwenza kube nje?
Manazela into ebelezenzakale lapho ayidingi imali akudingi imali ukuthi imithetho odalethi abafuna ukuba imali yabo eZimbabwe bakwenze lokho. Kufunekana nje ukuthi ahlale ehofisini ngokulanza hayi madoda ayiceleni achairman layo. Yikho okudingakala yini. Akudingi imali, akudingi ma-resources, kudinga nje ukuthatha phakathi ngeguarantee lokho akusebenzi okusebenzayo yilokho. So mbona ngathi bathi khona akuna kuzinikela kuhulumende ukwenza umehluko odingekayo ukuthi iZimbabwe iye phambili. Khaya ngani lokho kuyoziyela akukho lokho ekutshona i-political will. Ngani umhlangano ozawufanele ukuthi bezalane lezinhlangano siyafulele.
Yes, siyakuzwa kakhulu ke mnumzana phela ujede futhi kancane ngwazani sungene emlindini. So ujede futhi kwenze sikuzwe kuhle. Ifoni ziyakiliza lamhla sibili.
Okay.
Yeah, so sondele efonini
Okay.
uthi sikuzwe kuhle. Yeah. So what Mr. Piri was saying is that, you know, the government will is not paid for. You know, it's something that people can just sit down, you know, over a table and over some cup of tea, you know, and agree and say, no, gentlemen and ladies, this does not work, you know. So let's follow a certain kind of strand in terms of developing the country. So he says, please, government, sit down and decide, you know.
And of course, for those of you who are just joining us tonight on Studio 7 Live Talk, we are talking about the proposed 2015 4.1 billion national budget. Of course, there are many challenges, and the minister admitted that all is not well, with more than 4,000 companies having been closed in about 4 years, and also many people now joining the list of those who are not employed. And Gibbs, we have also seen some Zimbabweans going to neighboring countries such as South Africa and Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, to look for greener pastures. This can be just a temporary measure because another problem is that it's a serious brain drain. You know, you have Zimbabweans here in the US, some in Britain. We are talking about people who could have been instrumental in turning around the fortunes of the country. But many people are living professionals such as doctors, nurses, engineers. They are all leaving Zimbabwe, which will make it really difficult for the government to try and put a handle on this crisis.
Mr. Piri, what do you think about the brain drain? You know, it appears as if many people are leaving, and so that leaves a very big gap, you know, when we talk about having some experienced people to take care of the economy.
Well, of course, it does. Because what it simply means is that people that you spend so much time training, people that this experience in terms of running industries, running parastatals and so on, are being lost to other economies. So we are almost starting every time with newer, fresher people that need that guidance from the experienced hands. So I think it's certainly affecting the way in our economy, running our parastatals, our government system. But it was quite interesting a few days ago that Minister Chinamasa said you need to assist us, you need to assist Zimbabwe, because if you don't, you have more Zimbabwe flocking into your country. So to some extent, I think there is that acknowledgement that, look, until we fix difficulties, until people are able to gain different livelihoods, until your middle class is able to enjoy a proper middle class life in Zimbabwe, we continue to lose that valuable experience. People that they spend so much time training, losing them to South Africa. And then the economy is actually benefiting. It's expense, because they did not put anything into the training, they did not put anything into the education. All the things is that harvesting. And it is Zimbabweans that are actually losing out.
Now, Mr. Piri, of course, we cannot ignore the ruling ZANU-PF party Congress that is coming next week on the 2nd of December. And some are saying that because of that Congress, you know, government has not been focusing much on the economy. It has been on the infighting in the ruling party. Do you think we are going to see a change in focus next week after the Congress?
Well, I don't know. I think that ZANU-PF reached from a particular statement. And they might change faces, they might change who is in the political bureau, they might change even new people in culture and so on. I think that ZANU-PF is a certain ideology that drives it. will remain, and so on. So I don't see any dramatic change really. What I like to see, I think, is only maybe cabinet reshuffle after maybe January to reflect the new seniority within the party and so on. But in terms of the trust and the system of government, I don't see any dramatic change.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs.
Yes, siyabona njalo ke mnumzana Phiri. Sizwile ke umnumzana uChinamase ekhuluma sibili esithi kule mzamo ezayenziwa ukuthi kuvulwe ibhanga labomama okuthiwa i-Women's Bank ukuze ukuthi babe bethola phela bathola izikwelede lokunye okutshiyeneyo. Nyaka enye bako bakhuluma ngakho futhi khonokho. Bathi sebefake i-$10 million eceleni ukuthi kwenziwe. Kanti kwehlulani khonapho Baba Phiri?
Angicabangi ukuthi ibhajethi ayisiyo mali. Ibhajethi ngicabanga ukuthi singathola imali engaka lefake endaweni enje. I-problem esiba nayo eZimbabwe eminyakeni esidlule ukuthi ibhajethi ama-allocations nama-actual nemali esuka yefakwa kulezinto eyabe allocate khona wekharifila kungahambelani. So ngathola ukuthi kule 10 million kuthiwa izafakwa khonapho. Kodwa ukuthi kuyachasa kwengeke yafake yayo le-2. Lokho kubangelwa ukuthi imali yabekhandele ukuthi izangena esikhwameni sikahulumende mhlawumbe igcine ingangenanga kumbe kuvule izinto eziqakathekileyo ezigcina zisenza lokuyana kade ku-allocate khona kugcine kungasatholanga leyo mali. So lena yi-allocation ukuthi ngingathola imali ngingabuthi imali engithengisayo ukuthi ngizafaka imali enje ehlelweni oluthile. Kodwa ngesikhathi usuka kwenzakale ngaleyo nje ziningi izinto ezabhajethelwayo. Ngibona ama-student benza ukuthi ezingabo-careership nani sawuzafaka ubithi wayethe uzafaka imali engaka nani kodwa sigcina ekugcineni singawubonanga leyo. So ibhajethi nje ngicabanga ukuthi hhayi ngathola le mali ngizakwenza lokhu. Ayitsho ukuthi uhulumende yikho kanye azakwenza lokhu. Kwesikhathi ugcina mhlawumbe lesifakathi ngama-variances between ama-allocations and the actual money ephuma kumalo futhi.
Yes, what Mr. Phiri is saying is that, the government actually proposed last year to introduce a women's bank and is making a similar proposal this year. But he says those proposals are always remaining proposals.
Yeah.
Because the government looks for money everywhere, doesn't get it, and at the end of the day, that thing just fizzles off, So he says these proposals are designed for a very good purpose. But at the end of the day, nothing happens. It's very sad, yeah?
Mr. Phiri, let's talk about Zim Asset.
Yes.
The economic turnaround blueprint that the government proposed last year and said it will create 2 million jobs in 5 years. Do you think, minus the 27 billion that is needed to make sure that that program becomes successful, anything good will come out of it?
Well, it's the thing that look we'll see after 5 years. But to be honest, you see, an economic policy in this kind of environment, in the kind of economic environment that we have, Zim Asset is unlikely to achieve much because the environment that is needed to drive Zim Asset doesn't exist yet. And I think I keep coming to the point that until we've got an environment, until we've got a legal framework that enables or that attracts investors, that makes them feel confident, programs like Zim Asset will remain high key. Because Zim Asset is essentially about unlocking value. And you can't unlock value in your money, you can't unlock value in terms of processing, value efficiency, and so on. If you don't attract the kind of investment that enables you to set into motion that value unlocking. So until we've addressed the issue of attracting investors, attracting international finance, Zim Asset will not work. That's like many other programs they've tried, in the past 15, 20 years. They have works because the underlying problem, which is the environment that makes investors feel that their investment interest does not exist yet.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Gibbs.
Ye loba nje ukhuluma ke ngoku-unlocka khonokho ukuthi kuvele ku-unlockwa njani kuxukaxuthini nxa kume kunje kunzima phela phiri la
uku-unlocka kusho ukuthi uthi wena unemali kumbe sithi unebholide lingaphansi komhlabathi ibholide leyana alila-value nxa ungaligebhanga walikhipha walithengisa i-value yayo itholakala ngokuthini wena elithini ukulikhipha phansi walingenisa emakhethi lathengwa so nxa ungelayo imali wena ukulikhipha phansi i-value yana inothiwe ngoba yilokhu ingaphansi ithiyele kumele udinga amathiye ukuthi uyikhwimile uyikhiphe lelo golide phansi kumbe ngama-diamond kumele ulipholishe lelo diamond lize liyefika emakhethi lithole imali engcono kulihambisa i-diamond eli-rough ngoba lokho akukuphi inzuzo enkulu so ukwalokho ivalo sithi ukuthi unakho yini unazo indlela zokuthi lezo zinto oziphethe ezandleni uzidinge zenze ukuthi zikutholise imali nxa ungenelisi ukuyitshintsha lokho ivalo lana ayitholakali ngenxa yokuthi lezo zinto azikafiki ebangeni lokuthi ziphabithwe ngabanye abantu bazifise ukuzithenga.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. I think we are now being joined by our second guest, that is Dr. Godfrey Kanyenze of the Labor and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe. Dr. Kanyenze, good evening. Dr. Kanyenze? Dr. Kanyenze, can you hear me? We might be having a bad connection there. The phones have been a bit problematic, Gibbs. But maybe let's continue our discussion with Mr. Piri about the economy and also the way forward. Now, Mr. Piri, we have seen that most Zimbabweans are going to neighboring countries, especially the youths. Do you think this will help in the long run?
No. It's, well, look, one way could be to say as a short-term measure, if they are going there, it creates an environment which enables them to release whatever they are adding in those countries. But the long-term solution is Zimbabweans must work in Zimbabwe, grow the economy. We need that labor working here in Zimbabwe, paying taxes here in Zimbabwe, instead of paying taxes to South Africa and so on. For it is those economies now that are benefiting from our skills, our expertise, our tech, and we are only getting pieces out of those economies back into the country. But also, as we continue to lose people into other countries,
the line is breaking. If you can move again a bit, Mr. Piri.
Hello?
Yeah, you can go ahead. There was a break. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I was just saying that we even in terms of Zimbabwe being able to benefit from our own local population, if we're losing people to other economies, it simply means that even the products that are produced in Zimbabwe are losing out in terms of the population size that offers you the market. Imagine those 3 million Zimbabweans that are said to be outside, if they were to come here, every product that we are now selling, we are immediately able to sell to 3 million people. But at present, we are losing other people into other economies. Those economies are specifically, they are growing at the expense of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Gibbs.
But is it possible to attract them back home, all those people that are leaving?
for some, look, I think some of them have gone to those countries, they've settled down, they've started new life there, some have been married there and so on. So you might not be able to attract everyone back. But I think that for a lot of them, home is still home. And it's Zimbabwe going to offer the opportunity of different livelihoods. I think people are prepared to come to go. A lot of them actually, traveling out there, they are meeting their families, they want to, a lot of them are very patriotic. They want to come back home, work home and so on. But until we create that environment that enables them to feel that their country loves them too, it cares about how they live and so on. I think we might still have a problem in terms of training those people to actually come back home.
Let's also talk about attempts being made by Minister Chinamasa to protect domestic industries by increasing taxes on some imports. Do you think this will help in any way?
Yeah, look, to fix this economy, people will have to make certain careful decisions. And one of the decisions that needs to be made is that perhaps, we need to start supporting our own industry. We need to start creating jobs here. And our companies, due to a number of reasons, are struggling to compete with imports. So maybe, raising import duty and so on does really protect local companies to enable them to grow. But also, we need them to address other critical issues. Issues like power supply, issues like water supply. So our companies need to be able to be operating at their optimum level. We need to increase capacity utilization so that while in the short term goods might be expensive and so on, in the long run, you can actually get those goods being produced in a more efficient manner, which will also contribute to prices coming down.
Yes, sizwile njalo ke umnumzana uChinamasa ekhuluma ngokuthi ke kwamele ukukhulunyiswana labo IMF labo World Bank kukhulunywa ngokuthi izikwelede zixolelwe babapiri. Kambe zingaxolelwa yini? Kube liyatshona ihloko.
Uyakhulunyiswana angibone indlela vele ukuthi izikwelede ziyabhadalwa njani. Lona ngikhuluma ngama-budget ama-4 billion, ngafuma i-budget ye-4 billion. Yonke 80% yakho siyaholisa izisebenzi wena ukoloda i-9 billion kumbe i-12 billion. Angiboni ukuthi i-capacity yokubhadala ezikwelede ikhona. So ngibona ngathi you need somehow a government to sit down and say, look, asenelisi singenzani, singanginesala njani ukuthi mhlawumbe sibhadale kahle sinebrengi ukuthi into le isebenze then ngokuya kwesikhathi selijikela kwisebenzisana. Kodwa lokho kuzadinga ukuthi uhulumende naye atshintshe indlela asebenza ngayo, ngoba akunamuntu ozafaka imali yakhe engelaqiniseko ukuthi uzazoqalisa isikwelede sizefika kunjani ukubhadala. So indlela esisebenza ngayo kumele itshintshe kwezona labo afuna ukuthi isikwelede lawo babe nethemba ukuthi le mali enjalo esiyifakayo izabhadala.
Ye kunjalo ke Phiri, siyabonga kakhulu ke ungathina nokusasa mnumzana.
Thank you, Mr. Phiri. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but we want to thank our guest this evening, Mr. Godwin Phiri, based in Bulawayo, is a social commentator. And of course, we want to thank the listeners who managed to get through, because the phones were a bit problematic today. But yes, hoping that you have a nice weekend. Signing off, this is yours truly, Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Kip Stube saying have a nice weekend. Good night.